Mambo Team Africa Worldwide, Habari Asabui. Today I'm going to actually do a rebuttal video. I've never done one of these before. I'm not about internet beefs and YouTube beefs, but sometimes when people put things out in the public, it has to be refuted. And if not, if nobody says anything, then people will believe what was said must be true. There's a particular YouTuber. He might not refer to himself as a YouTuber, but he places videos on YouTube. And I used to watch him, and he says a lot of good stuff. He's a little older than me. I looked up to him. I used to be on his lives. I used to check him out, and then he started saying a lot of stuff I just didn't agree with, so I stopped watching him. And I hadn't watched him in a very long time, probably at least a year or two. And a friend of mine forwarded one of his most recent videos to me. And that video was called The 12 Reasons Why African Americans Aren't Moving to Africa. And so I just wanted to comment on that. I'm not saying that there wasn't any truth in the things he said, but everything has to be put into context. And so I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna do it in general. I'm gonna try to do it in order, but I'm not gonna do it 1 through 12. But I'm just going to run them down. I'm not gonna say the brother's name because he has a lot more uh, people who subscribe to his channel than I do. And so a lot of times people think if you use their name in the title of your video, or even when you're speaking on a subject matter, that you're trying to do that to build your following or your subscribers list. So I'm not going to mention the name, but like I said, the name of the video was 12 Reasons Why African Americans Are Not Moving to Africa. Okay, so the first thing he said was that brothers and sisters who uh, want to move to Africa don't represent the general consensus. That's true. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's always been like that. I mean, when they had the civil rights movement in the 60s, that wasn't everybody. That was a small group of people that did the fighting for everybody else for the rights that we enjoy today. So it's nothing wrong with being in a minority, but what usually happens is that once people see a movement gaining momentum, then they join in because everybody likes a winner. I mean, everybody that was wearing afros and black leather jackets weren't in the Black Panther Party, but they joined the movement. They saw that these people were gaining momentum, and like I said, everybody wants to be down with a winner. And on top of that, we're not saying that every single person, African American, should move to Africa. Um, some people, even though they may go by African American, they aren't African American. They're just black. There's a difference. You know, um, all black people aren't African Americans. Africa has to be born in you. If Africa is not calling you, then stay here. But there's a lot of people who Africa is calling them, but due to circumstances, they aren't able to leave. And that's cool too, because everybody has people stationed in the United States and throughout the world to protect their interests. So I want there to be a certain amount of African Americans here in the US to affect public policy on Africa when, I live there. Um, so, uh, he talked about how a lot of people talk about going, but they never go. And all I can say is it would be stupid to just rush out and do something without planning. You have to make sure you have a good plan because the man who fails to plan plans to fail. So you need to do your research. You need to visit before you go. That's what I always do. I don't tell everybody to uproot themselves and move to Africa, what I say is visit Africa. Me, I have been to Africa on 3 different occasions in the past 2 years, and I plan to get there permanently within the next year. That's my goal. So it's nothing wrong with making sure you got a solid plan before you, um, you know, book that plane ticket, that one-way plane ticket to go home. If you don't consider Africa as home, then this message isn't for you. Um, he said that um, you know we have all these Pan Africans, but we don't even have any um, like travel agencies or anything like that. I know that YouTubers such as Diane Samir, Phil Scott, RJ Makdi, and there's several other people. Those are just names that I can think of right quick. They all do tours on the continent. So I don't know where he's been, but there are people on the continent and people who live here who consistently go to the continent who are setting up tours all the time. Um, I mean, people have even asked me when I was going to start setting up tours, and I said that I wouldn't do it until I was permanently located on the continent. Um, he brought up um, Hakata. People love saying that, bringing up that word. The majority of people on the continent haven't even heard of the word Hakata. There's people in Nigeria that haven't even heard the word Hakata. I mean, we saw that in a Wesley Snipes movie back in the late 80s, early 90s or something, and we've been talking about Akata ever since. Most people in Africa don't even know what that shit means. Um, he talks about if Africa has so many different countries, why don't other Africans go there? I mean, that is not even a realistic statement. I mean, people have been migrating throughout the continent since the beginning of the time. The people from the east went to the west, the people from the west went to the south. And if you go to Uganda, it's going to be people there from the Congo. If you go to um, Kenya, it's going to be people there from Ethiopia. If you go to Tanzania, it's going to be people there from Rwanda. So that's not even based on any type of reality whatsoever. So that's one thing, people say, you know, um, that if you don't know about certain things, then you shouldn't speak on it. And I think everybody should have the ability to state their opinion on whatever they want to state their opinion on. But make sure it's right. I mean, if you've never stepped foot on Africa to know these things, and all you've done is read some books, and you might not know what you're talking about. People throughout Africa travel throughout Africa. I mean, unfortunately, last year they had the xenophobia in South Africa, but how would they have xenophobia if nobody from other countries was there? I mean, does that make sense? Is that logical? It's not logical at all. Okay. He said another reason, one reason why uh, we aren't going to Africa is because too many Africans are coming here. That makes no sense. Africa has a population of 1.2 billion people, and we only have 2.1 million African immigrants in the country. Um, China has 5.5 million immigrants in the U.S. Russia has 1.6 million immigrants in the New York City tri-state area alone. So there's a lot of people that come to the U.S. I mean, why everybody comes to the U.S. Because the U.S. markets itself to the rest of the world as this is the place you want to come. They market themselves so other people will come here, and what they do is they do a brain drain. They get a lot of the talented people from other countries to come to the U.S. to make U.S. what it is. Um, and we got to be honest. When the last time you've been to the doctor and the majority of the people in the hospital weren't first generation or second generation Americans. I mean, so they contribute a lot to the country. So let's not trip on that. He talked about tribalism. Tribalism is everywhere. Tribalism is here in the U.S. You know, you got people who live in the Washington D.C. area love talking down to people in the South, calling them Bamas, and people in New York look down to people in D.C. and tell them they're from down south, and then they get mad because they not smart enough to know a lot of them that they south of the Mason Dixie line. And I mean, you got all these gangs we have gangs right there in Chicago where the brother is from that we shooting up each other every weekend. But we want to bring up tribalism. I mean, so later for that, that's not really an issue. Said people don't want to leave their family. Okay, well, I think that the move for Africa is best for two types of people. One, very young people, probably who haven't married unless they've married another Pan African person, and somebody who doesn't have children, so they don't have to worry about being separated from their children. And also, retirees, you have that pension check, you have that Social Security check. Take that over to Africa. That's enough right there to sustain yourself, even more than enough. You can live in most African countries for $1,000 a month. So that's what I'm looking to do. Figure out how to get that and maybe a little bit more continued income. I mean, if I had a pension or I was old enough to get Social Security, I would be out of here already. Oh, and there's a third person, of course, and that's the entrepreneur. If you already have learned how to generate your own income, and you think that, and you do that online, and you're not relying on just your customers here, um, with a brick and mortar type business, then what you waiting on? You can just get up and be out. Um, and on top of that, I mean, most people not even really tight with their family. I mean, that's shit talking. Most of us, we don't even see anybody unless there's a funeral, a family reunion, or funerals, family reunions, the occasional wedding. Since we're not getting married like we used to. And I mean, there's people out here that don't even talk to their own sisters and brothers for months at a time. You know, people, don't talk to their parents every day. So, I mean, if you move to Africa, I mean, you might see them more because they might be interested in coming out to visit you. Okay. He went into the myth of Africans so other Africans. Okay, first of all, we have to talk about the fact that during that time period, um, there wasn't a concept of all Africans being the same, you know, and also there wasn't any concept of slavery because what they had in Africa was servitude that was completely different. Your children didn't inherit it. You wasn't, in service until you died. This thing called slavery is something completely European. There was no slavery in Africa. It is a totally different system. And on top of all that, it's no us and them. We are them. People would um, participate in that trade, and then they would themselves end up traded. It wasn't one particular people selling another people. The same people who were trading, a lot of them got traded later. And you don't think, and then they weren't just grabbing, rounding up people at their homes and grabbing the whole family and bringing them to America. When people were kidnapped and brought to America, they left family behind there. You know, one day your sister, your brother might go missing, and then you're crying for that person, hoping that they will return one day, but they won't return because they either got thrown in the Atlantic Ocean or they out over here in the U.S. getting their ass beat. And so our ancestors that was kidnapped was some of their same ancestors who got kidnapped. We're one people. I mean, and I don't know why people don't understand that. And also, what else did he say? He was talking about, um, Africans aren't friendly. Um, we aren't friendly. I mean, how often have you said hello to somebody and then they not even speak back, look at you like you crazy, like you're trying to beg for money or something? I remember plenty of days when I used to work downtown Detroit and I'm on my way into work. I would say hello or good morning to people. And after two or three times, I would just stop and just walk to the office because I'm like, man, I'm starting to ruin my day by just trying to be polite. So that whole, friendly. I mean, some people are friendly, some people aren't. Most of the times people are more friendly when you get to know them. The typical person isn't friendly to strangers. That's everybody, red, black, green, and purple. Um, and then the whole time he's cussing everybody out. He's saying the Africans, MFers, and this and that, and cussing, cussing, cussing. But he's saying they rude. Like, what's ruder than that? Then he talked about um, boredom. I mean, if you go to Africa and you're bored, I don't know what's wrong with you. You just a person who is not very creative. There's a million things to do in Africa. I've been there three times. I mean, if you want to hit the beaches, they have beaches. If you want to see gardens, they have gardens. If you want to climb mountains, they have mountains. If you want to see wildlife, you want to see wildlife. If you want to go to the clubs and party, they got very nice nightclubs. If you want to go to the malls and shop, they have very nice shopping malls. Um, so um, as far as being bored, I don't see why you'd be bored. There's languages to learn. How are you going to be bored? It's new cultures to learn. So how would you be bored? As long as you're engaging with the people and learning new things every day, it would be impossible to be bored. That makes no sense. That's what I say. People just when people say things, sometimes they sound good, but just ask yourself whether or not it's logical. He talked about all of the celebrities that we have as far as stars and music and stuff like that with Rihanna's and Ti's and Beyonce's and I'm not saying that these people aren't talented and that I don't enjoy their music, but what you have to understand is that they also have the American entertainment marketing machine behind them. People in Africa are just as talented. Those dance moves that we use, that's in our DNA. It comes from Africa. The way we sing, that's in our DNA. It comes from Africa. I mean, we might have a slightly different accent because we've been around these Mzungus, but African American music is African music. And the only reason why people like brother King Kaka um, and Burner Boy and all of them aren't as famous as the Ti and the Jay Z is simply because of the American marketing machine. It doesn't mean that they're any less talented. Afro beats is great music. It sounds great. It's a lot of different types of music that is on the continent that sounds just as good and is just as entertaining as our music. Um, and he's just talking about like it's so much opportunity, like to be a celebrity or to become a professional athlete. I mean, that is such a small percentage of the African American population. It's not even worth mentioning. He talked about stability. Um, America is a young country. It's not that stable either. We had a civil war. We had the War of 1812. We had the Gullah Geechee Wars, and now we don't know what's going to happen in November. We just assuming that we know. The problem is so many people think that that America is so great and that it's never going to crumble and it's never going to fall. And a news flash, it's already crumbling, it's already falling. um the brother talked about gun ownership. Gun ownership um is something that they do have in